everybody, Elizabeth Hines here from our Paleo family and the Autoimmune Free Cooking Club. It's the beginning of February, and in February I do a Whole30 or some sort of elimination diet. Members of my Autoimmune Free Cooking Club, some of them are doing this along with me or some other form of challenge for themselves. And for me, the way I can get through a month where I'm really being very strict with my diet is to have food that fits those guidelines but that I really enjoy eating. And so this recipe is one of those. I'm making my lemon blueberry scones, and there's no sugar in them. So the Whole30 would say, no, these are not acceptable for their plan because they simulate a regular baked good. But another elimination type diet, the 21-day Sugar Detox, would say yes. In fact, this recipe was modeled after one of her recipes because there's no sugar. And so it's made with real whole ingredients, and I'm being a really mean mom and making my kids do this Whole30 with me. I'm letting them have dairy and a couple other things, but they can have no sugar. And they're growing teenagers and they need a lot of calories. And so this is going to be a breakfast treat for them. I'm going to have to tell my son he can have one per day or they'll be gone just like that. So this is kind of a typical quick bread method where we have our dry ingredients and then we have our wet ingredients and we mix them together. And I didn't have time to prep a whole lot today, so that just means I will talk to you while I am prepping. So we're going to put our dry ingredients in this bowl, and that starts with 2.5 cups of almond flour, which I didn't get out. I didn't get out my measuring cup. Okay, 2.5 cups. This is the almond flour from Costco. It's 2, I need 3 more. I really like it. It's very finely ground, and it's of course a good price. It's about $6.50 a pound, I believe. Okay, so this is 4. It doesn't have the skins. So for example, this may have changed, but the last time I bought almond flour at Trader Joe's, they just had almond meal, which is a little more coarsely ground, and it has the skins, which is just not what I want for baking. You can order online. Until we became members of Costco, I bought my almond flour from Welby's, and Welby's sells through their own website, but they also sell through Amazon, and depending on where you live, you can get Welby's almond flour delivered same day. So if you're a Prime member, it's free shipping. Their almond flour is just like this. It's very fine. It's very nice quality. So if you're not a Costco member, I highly recommend Welby's, and I'll link to that in the description. So 2.5 cups of almond, and then 1/2 cup of arrowroot. You could substitute tapioca if you don't have arrowroot. These are basic paleo pantry staples that if you want to cook in an anti-inflammatory way, which is what we're doing, that's what paleo is, you need to have some of these things on hand so you're not frustrated and so you don't get bored, and you can make really good tasty stuff. You might say paleo, schmaleo, you know, that was a trend, it's over, it's just a fad. It's not a trend and it's not a fad. It is an anti-inflammatory diet. So almost all health disease conditions are the result of inflammation in the body, even heart disease. I'm trying to talk to you and focus on my recipe at the same time, and I'm having a really hard time doing that, obviously. I need 1/4 teaspoon. I need 2 teaspoons of baking powder and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. This is just my baking soda can, baking powder can, but I buy an aluminum-free one from Thrive Market and just fill it up in there because I like the can. That little can is convenient. And then we need 1/4 teaspoon of salt. This is just a sea salt. Okay. So by keeping your inflammation low, you can control your disease. And that is what we want to do. So those are our dry, or like our normal dry ingredients. We also have a couple extra that are considered dry. So the zest of 1 lemon, I'll link this microplane grater down below as well. Mine's at least 10 years old, and I think I need a new one. The blades are not as sharp as they were. This is a great, inexpensive kitchen tool. It's one of my indispensable tools I highly recommend you have. You can grate garlic with it, of course zest. If you want really finely grated Parmesan cheese, something like that, it's great for that. Okay, so that's part of our lemon flavors coming from the zest. And you want to mix that in with the dry, because then the little pieces of zest will get coated with your dry ingredients and they won't be all clumped together. And then we have these dried blueberries. I want a half a cup, which, you know what, I'm just going to add the rest of these. A friend of mine made these for me. She just dehydrated fresh blueberries. And because I was complaining that I couldn't find just blueberries. They were either really, really expensive or they have sugar and oil added to them. And so I just wanted plain blueberries. So her oven has a super low setting and she could dehydrate. So do your best. Try to find dried blueberries without sugar added, or dehydrate them yourself. Okay, so those are my dry ingredients. Nope, I'm lying to you. My other dry ingredient is apple, and you want 2 green apples. So I have 3 here, you can see. This one's like a normal size, this one's really small, but this one has a really bad spot right here, so I know I'm really only gonna get about 2/3 of that apple, and so I had half of one. I like to put a chunk of green apple in my green smoothie to add some sweetness and fiber. So I almost always have half of a green apple in the fridge. My daughter, for her science fair project, tested what is the best way to keep a cut apple fresh, and she determined that wrapping it in foil was the most effective. So, whereas I used to put it in a bag or plastic wrap, now I use foil. And I'm not following my own advice here, so I'm going to change that. It's not super important, but your results will be better if you actually cut your little apple shreds. When they come out long like this, it's really fine. You can kind of break them up as you stir, but if you just give them a rough chop like this, it'll make those little shreds shorter, and they'll just incorporate into your scones better. So you need to peel your green apples and then grate them. I just use that real simple grater. My grandma called it a slaw cutter because she would use, that was hers. It was either hers or she bought it for me. She would grate her cabbage with that, and I tried it to make coleslaw. And I had cabbage flying all over my kitchen. So, Grandma, I love you and you taught me a lot, but that's not my favorite method for grating cabbage. If I'm going to do a whole bunch, like for April in a bowl, that kind of recipe, I will run it through the food processor. So this apple had a bunch of brown spots, so I'm glad I got the extra. You want about 2 cups of shredded apple. It doesn't have to be exact, but don't go way over and don't go way under. I love recipes like that that can be kind of flexible. So how is your new year going? Did you make a resolution? Are you sticking with it? How's it going? Are you feeling good? Are you making some changes? Something we're talking about in my membership this month, we have a different theme for each month. In February being the month of love, we're talking about self-love, self-care, and we're about to, because that'll happen tomorrow. And just how important it is to care for ourselves, and it's not selfish, it's not greedy, it's not self-indulgence, it's self-care, because if you are not caring for yourself to the point that you're not well at your highest level of health, goodness gracious, these have some bad spots, then you can't care for everybody else well. So it is vitally important that you take care of yourself, especially if you're dealing with a chronic health condition. The stress and just kind of burning the candle at both ends is, you know, how we say it typically in the United States. We tend to admire that, really revere, is that the right word? Exalt, maybe that's better. People who work 12-hour days and don't take vacation and seem to never rest. Well, that's not good. We shouldn't exalt those people. That's not good for their bodies. So back to the New Year's resolution. If you haven't made a resolution, maybe consider making one related to self-care. Just caring for your body and freeing yourself up to do it, to not feel guilty. You don't need to feel guilty about taking a break. Okay, so I'm just going to toss that together, and that's the end of my dry. I am going to get my palm shortening out. That's the fat. I have it in the freezer because we keep the palm shortening at room temperature. It's room temperature. And for something like this, which a scone is like a biscuit, you want your fat to be cold. So I just measured it out, and it's sitting in the freezer in the measuring cup. I'm going to get everything else ready, and then I'll get them out of the freezer. Okay, so my liquid is 1/4 cup of coconut milk. Can you tell how rich and creamy that is? That's full fat coconut milk. I have 1 large egg, right? Yes, 1 large egg, 1/4 cup of coconut milk, and I need 2 teaspoons of lemon juice. So here's my lemon that I zested, and just juice him real quick. See how much that is. Whoops, these guys are magnetic. What? 2, exactly 2. I needed half. I think that's it for my liquid. The lemon, the milk, and the egg. So I'm just going to whisk this because I need to break up that fat from my coconut milk. You could use almond milk. You could use dairy milk if you want to, but trying to keep this in elimination mode, we're eliminating dairy. Dairy just bothers a lot of people, so it's a great one to eliminate. All right, let me get my palm shortening. Okay, I have my oven at 350, and you can see I have my baking sheet back there with a piece of parchment on it. This really froze quickly. Yahoo, that's what I wanted, but I gotta get it out of there safely. Computer's about to fall asleep. My hands are dirty. It's a race against time. Okay, let me just check my recipe and make sure I got everything. With the palm shortening, 1/4 cup, almond flour, arrowroot, baking powder, sea salt, lemon zest and lemon juice, dried blueberries, coconut milk, an egg, and the Granny Smith apples. So this was in the freezer for about 15 minutes, and it's really good. It's nice and cold. I don't think I would have been able to work with it right away if I left it in there longer than that. So I just use my hands and work it together. You want to be kind of light with it. You're going to get that lumpy texture. This is a lot of ingredients for just 1/4 cup of the fat, so you really want to take your time and make sure you get it incorporated well throughout. You can, and I'm saying traditional like I know. I mean, I believe scones are British, or, you know, we think of the British. I know I have some people from England who watch, so y'all can correct me if I'm wrong. But that's where I think of scones coming from. And sometimes, you know what, now that I say that, whenever I see pictures of like an English tea, maybe the scones are round. They're kind of cut out with a cutter. But in the United States, they're typically triangles. Roll them out into a triangle, and then, sorry, I've been sick. Can you tell? I don't think my brain is back yet. You roll them out into a circle and then cut them into triangles like you would cut a pizza. And that's how we usually see them here in the U.S. But it's easier for me to make them round, and I use one of my cookie scoops. So that is the way I'm doing it. It's super easy to portion and get them exactly the same size. You just absolutely do what you want, okay? All right, so let me clean this. Give that a quick whisk again. And then I'm going to pour this in. Remember, this was just the egg, coconut milk, and lemon juice. So see, nothing weird, you know. We've got our Paleo pantry staple ingredients, which really are just the palm shortening for a dairy-free fat and a non-inflammatory fat, the almond flour, and the arrowroot. If you're curious about palm shortening, because there is a lot of misinformation about palm, it's like Crisco in that it is a fat that you can bake with. It is solid at room temperature in the winter. In the summertime, sometimes mine will melt a little bit because it's so hot and humid here. But there's a lot of misinformation about whether it's healthy, whether it's sustainable, is it killing the rainforest, all that kind of stuff. I order mine from Tropical Traditions. They've actually just had it on sale. I'll link it. That sale may be over. But they have a lot of really great information on their website about palm shortening. And it's the truth. So if you have some of those questions, I recommend you read that. Okay, so let me wash my hands and clean up so I have space to portion these out. I use this big scoop. It's about 1/4 cup. And I'm not being rough with them, but I'm not being super gentle either because I want to fill up the measuring scoop. And this makes, gosh, it's been a while since I made them. I quit making them because my son ate them all. And not that I didn't want him to eat them, but it just felt like I'm doing all this work and they're gone in a day and a half. Maybe a dozen, 12 or 13. He, of course, would prefer that I put an icing on them, which I do when I'm not making him not have sugar. I would mix the lemon juice, so I finished juicing that lemon, and mix it with some organic powdered sugar or some coconut nectar, which would be a paleo acceptable, less inflammatory form of sweetener. So sometimes they'll get kind of stuck in this little scoop, so just check it, pull it out. And I just looked at the clock and realized I gotta go to Bible study. The time just got away from me. I've got a whole bunch of stuff going on right now, including studying for the National Board Certification for Health Coaches. And so I got a lot of balls in the air right now. I got a lot of stuff going on. And I lost track of time. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm just going to loosely cover this sheet pan, and I'm going to put these in the fridge. So they will expand a little bit in baking, but not a ton. So you don't have to leave a lot of space between them. I know sometimes when baking biscuits, it's best to actually have them touching each other so they get that nice sort of, you know what I mean, like a biscuit is sort of crispy on the top and most of the way around, but then where it's touching its neighbors, it's kind of not raw, but you know what I mean, it's softer there. And so you can get that. So here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And I'm going to put these in the fridge and then I'm going to bake them. You won't know any of that. It'll just be like that for you. And I'll show you the finished product. These guys bake for, if I can do this with, there we go, 18 to 20 minutes. Okay? All right, I'll show them to you when they're all done. And through the magic of television, we have clean dishes and we have completed scones. So the kitchen smells amazing. You can really smell the lemon. Remember, there is no sugar in these, no artificial sweetener, no sugar. We just have real blueberries that have been dehydrated, blueberries with no added sugar to them, and the main sweetener in our scones is the apple, the shredded green apple, which again, you know, those aren't a super sweet one, but it's just enough. So they're beautiful. They're just slightly browned on the top. Inside, they're nice and flaky. I'll give you a close-up. Looks like the texture of a biscuit. That's what you want. They're super hot, but can I sneak a bite? I love the lemon. They're really, really good. Now, if you are not doing a sugar detox and you want a little sweetener, you can make a glaze with the lemon juice and some, I would recommend organic powdered sugar. You could even, before you put them in the oven, sprinkle them with a little coconut sugar or maple sugar. You kind of press that in and it'll stick. You could brush the tops with butter and then sprinkle on your sugar. The monk fruit granular sweetener, which is a combination of monk fruit and erythritol, so it's a no calorie, no sugar sweetener. That one bakes really well. You can sprinkle that on top if you wanted a little extra sweetness or wanted these to be more like a dessert. But I actually love them just the way they are. Now, if I weren't doing Whole30 and avoiding dairy, I would put a big old pat of grass-fed butter on top. Salted grass-fed butter, delicious. So good on these. But as they are grain-free and dairy-free and just full of flavor and yumminess. So, lemon blueberry scones. I hope you enjoy this recipe. I'm offering a membership to my website for access to all my recipes, and I know that you can get lots of recipes for free. And I'm not saying that all of my recipes are fabulous, but I check out cookbooks from the library. I get magazines that have recipes in them, and I try lots and lots of other people's recipes, and I get very frustrated because oftentimes they don't work or they don't taste good. So if you've ever made any of my recipes and they work for you and you like the taste, that's what my recipes are like. And I think it's worth paying for good recipes that turn out well. You can watch my video. I give you the measurements in the video. You can just write it down as you go, or you can pay the $9.99 a month and get access to the website. There's no limit. You could join for a month, get as many recipes as you want, and then cancel. I'm not trying to be sneaky, but I am trying to make a little bit of a living, and I think I'm providing you really good recipes that work. They'll make your family happy, they'll make your life easier, and help you stick to your anti-inflammatory lifestyle. So, I would love it if you would consider that. And I hope you make this recipe and let me know what you think. Oh, this is where I was going with that at the very beginning. There are other versions of this scone recipe. I have like an apple cinnamon, there's a pumpkin, which of course is delicious all the time, but we only want pumpkin in the fall. But there are other versions of this recipe on the website. All right, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this one, and I look forward to seeing you back here next time.